Hey everybody, I'm the Crockett Cooner, and this is the Crockett Coonhound Show, and you have made it to Fireside Chats with the old Cooner. It is December the 28th, 2024. We're just right there at 2025, guys, just a few days away. And I wanted to take time tonight, guys, to talk about something that's kind of an outdoor topic. That's why I called this Fireside Chats the Minimalist lifestyle. So let's talk about this for a minute, guys, because I somewhat embrace this lifestyle, guys. But then again, guys, myself and Scooter, you're seeing us here. We're on our phones. We're on our cameras. We have websites. We like the technology, guys. But now, let's talk about something, because living a minimalist lifestyle many times goes along with folks that are homesteaders, preppers, and these types of things. And that is one thing that here at the Crockett Coonhound Show, myself and Scooter are dedicated to. Now, in times past, we have been asked, guys, hey, Cooner, you and Scooter, how'd you guys learn all this stuff? Everything from hunting, fishing. Well, we were taught it, guys, by people that literally grew up here in America in the time of the Depression. They more or less taught us kind of how to live off the land. We're also from southern Middle Tennessee. It's a very cultural thing in this area to hunt and fish and those types of things. But now, recently, guys, much like the rest of you and folks that follow what all's going on in the world and stuff, it seems that there has been this push, especially within the last 4 or 5 years, guys, for folks to kind of say, what is the most basic things that I need to survive and live and get by, and what can I rid myself of in my life, right? And a lot of folks have found that they really get into the scientific, technical part of it, which many times, like here at the Crockett Coonhound Show, we're all about the outdoors. And being a homesteader, having a minimalist type of lifestyle, being folks that are survivor types of people, those things all kind of go hand in hand, guys. Now, that's kind of why I wanted to talk about this tonight, because there's a lot of folks that do not have the ability to, sell everything they got, move to an area that's so remote that no human's been there in probably 100 years. A lot of other folks, they wouldn't want to do that, right? They like the idea of a minimalist lifestyle, but they don't want to be, completely like homesteaders. So that's kind of why I'm talking about this. We have many folks that live in very urban areas, and guys, there's no telling how many of them there at the edge of the window, just grow a small tomato plant. There's no telling how many folks live in some major metropolitan areas. There's community gardens. We have folks that are on top of their buildings. They've set up an area, few vegetables, those types of things. But now, we also have the other folks here at the Crockett Coonhound Show, not just like the old Cooner here, got the garden out back. I live kind of in a rural area, but we have some folks that are way out. I've had these folks come to my home before in times past looking for things like my chestnuts. For those of you that have followed us for a while, I have a couple of chestnut trees. I didn't plant them. The older gentleman that lived in my home before I did in fact plant them. And I gave them away, and I've had a ton of people that's like, Cooner, I'm going to start a whole grove of these chestnuts, and that's kind of their mindset, to be homesteaders, to live off the grid, to stay away from the supermarket as much as possible, to produce everything for themselves. But now, guys, there's a few things that you need to know, all right? Because every day there's folks that are saying, hey, something has made me say, you guys have said it to yourselves, I need a change in how I do things. I can't keep up with it. But now there's things that you need to remember. Okay? If you are, in fact, guys, going to start growing your own garden, right? Now, I talk a whole lot about seed banks. For those of you that may not know, that's saving your seeds from the vegetables the year before. Now, what a lot of folks don't know, all right? So we got to talk the bad with the good, guys. I'm sorry, I don't want to be negative, but a lot of times when you do that, a lot of the seeds, the folks that did in fact breed them up to be resistant against certain types of droughts, certain types of fungus and disease that they would find in the plants, they bred them up to make them hybrids. A lot of times when you start saving your seeds, guys, things like that will come back. So that's something that you have to keep in mind if you do in fact decide to grow a garden that is so large that you want it to sustain you, possibly maybe even sell some of your vegetables or trade or something with them, for other people that live kind of a bartering type of lifestyle. These are things you have to keep in mind. For folks that do in fact hunt and fish, this is fine. We already understand about wild game and places like Alaska, there's certain times that, you couldn't eat the bears because of what the bears have been eating. And then there's other times there's folks that are always talking about a blueberry bear, where if you were to clean this animal, the meat inside of it will literally be blue because of what it's been eating. But let's talk small game, those types of things. Squirrel, that's a great example right there, guys. And I just want to tell you up front, I had a gentleman contact me, myself and Scooter. We've known him for years. I haven't seen him, I just see him occasionally. He'll probably see this video. He's contacted me. He said, "Hey, Cooner, let's get down here to my farm, do a little squirrel hunting." He has in fact found a dog. We're going to try to videotape a little of that for you guys. I got that coming up here shortly, weather permitting, because here in southern middle Tennessee we've hit cold weather and we're getting a lot of rain, and won't be long before the old snow and ice shows up. But we're going to try to get out, show some of that to you guys. But back to the point, guys, anytime that you are in fact going to start eating a lot of wild game, people did that for centuries, but you have to know things to look for, because some of it you can in fact see, guys. Some of it, guys, you can't. There's a lot of like wool in squirrels. In times past when I was young, man, that was my job. Like I said, I was brought up by a lot of folks that grew up during the Depression. Well, they love squirrel and dumplings. That's a southern thing for the southern U.S. But they always wanted me to hunt after the first freeze. Well, why? Because the squirrels have these little knots all over them, and I have in fact seen them basically come out of a squirrel. That's right, across the bed of a pickup truck. Now, I know how nasty that sounds, folks, but for those of you that are new to a lifestyle where you're going to really live off the grid, we're talking going out, finding a deer, that type of thing. You definitely need to check on diseases that white-tailed deer in fact carry, blue tongue, those types of things. Chronic waste. Many of those diseases, no matter how much you cook the meat, doesn't come out, guys, and you can't tell that the animal's sick. So now these are things to keep in mind. And one thing, guys, I'd like to add right there. Now, that is one thing that I have never really mentioned to you guys, myself or Scooter. Folks, we hate to see a person try to go and succeed and then fail. Okay? There has been a lot of people that have said, you know what, going to try this off the grid. They have an idea in their mind. And their idea is exactly what they thought it would be. But then there's that other part that they didn't know about, because, for folks that are coming from a very urban type of area to a very rural area, well, there's new challenges that come with rural area living. If nobody's around your homestead, you never can tell who's liable to be out there in the rural areas and say, I wonder where this road goes, and it happens to be your driveway. Made that in a video just here a while back. Myself and a good buddy of mine was coon hunting one night, and we ran upon a lady that was stuck on a logging road behind his house. It was obvious, folks. Like, why would you drive basically through the side of his side yard? But this lady thought it was a road, or at least that's what she told us. So these are the types of things that you've got to be prepared for, because in a minimalist type of lifestyle, guys, that's just it. You have basically said, well, what is the least I need to get by? What can you rid yourself of in life that you just no longer like doing? And if it just went away, you would be comfortable with it. But I guess what I'm trying to say here, guys, because like I said, myself and Scooter don't ever want to see anybody go and fail, is that, there's going to be challenges of things that you have not expected, especially if you're going to an area you don't know about and you're trying to completely turn over a new leaf in life, and people are doing it every day, guys. A lot of folks that are into a lot of homesteading, one thing that they love is alternative sources of power. Now, I'm talking everything from solar panels to wind panels to possibly figuring out how to take that spring out of the side of a hill there and, power something with it, all the way down, guys, to outside wood boilers, and how they can use that to, in fact, heat the water in the house, heat their homes, all kinds of things. They want to get it to where they're basically off the grid type of thing. They want remoteness, privacy many times, enough area that if they have family members that want to come and live in that same lifestyle, they've got that way to live, And one thing, guys, that seems to be, in my opinion here, going on is that we have a ton of folks that are saying, they just can't do it anymore. The hustle and bustle of everyday life, they don't like it. I know for a fact that Scooter had a gentleman walk up to him one time, shake his hand, tell him his name, and he told Scooter that he sat in traffic for a living. And it just, you could tell it was like the man just was not happy. And there's a ton of folks that are in that boat, and they're saying, you know what, I can't do this anymore. I'm going to have to get more or less back to nature, back to a simpler way of doing things. And if you're going to do that, guys, and you're going to start in with homesteading, for instance, let's hit on something. Let's talk about backyard chickens, and I'll use myself as an example, guys. Well, for those of you that know, I know you've seen them in the backgrounds of the videos. I have had laying hens now for years. Had those as a kid growing up. My hens did, in fact, quit laying. Gave them to some Amish fellows. They wanted them. They were going to butcher them and eat them. And I found some new hens, a couple of new hens, and a rooster from one of our drone pilots here at the Crockett Coonhound Show. He does a lot of our aerial work. Well, guys, it wasn't but a few days, and one of my hens got into something. It's called hardware disease a lot of times in chickens. It means that if you let them free range, they pick up something, a piece of baling wire, a piece of old screen, who knows what, a screw, anything, they ingest it, and sadly they don't make it through it. I'm pretty sure that's what happened to her. But, it's little things like that, guys, that many times folks that are trying to turn over a new leaf in life and live off grid, they miss, especially if you're talking a lot of things like, owning your own beef cattle, those types of things, maybe just one or two cows, right? You're wanting to get them up there fat, you're wanting to fatten them up, you're wanting to butcher them, put them in the freezer, live off of what you have in fact grown and harvested. It comes with homesteading, guys. Well, if you don't want to do the cleaning process yourself, because when we're talking a pretty good sized steer, that's a lot of work, and you have to know how to do it. So you have to take into consideration, do you have a meat market there that will in fact butcher this steer for you? Do you have somebody that will do a deal where if you give them half the steer they'll give you the other half. They won't charge you anything. Or do you have folks in your area that have like mobile butcher shops? Now, there's a lot of folks that have that, and they will come out to your homestead and they'll clean this cow or steer or whatever for X amount of money, and it'll go from being livestock out in the field to being food in the freezer. And that's just the farm to table lifestyle, guys. That's I've got some videos and things on it, guys, talking about the food chain. What's the food chain now for lots of folks? Well, for those of you that are old enough to remember, we did at one time have that in the third grade science book. If you recall, there was a little bug, and then there's a fish, and then there's a seal, and then there was a gentleman that looked like he was Eskimo with a spear. And if you ever noticed, it looked like he was smiling because he had something to eat. Well, guys, if you think about it, is that the food chain for us? Is that the food chain we all see, guys? Not really. It's a lot of times you're hungry. Where do you go? The supermarket. What's there? The prepared food. You pick it up, you bring it home. Better yet, you go to a restaurant. It's already, cooked for you. You eat a meal, you pay, you go home. That is somewhat our food chain. We don't have, folks, many of us, an intimate relationship with the cow or pig that we're consuming, or the chickens. We never saw them. They were elsewhere in the world, and they were brought to us. And that's fine. But there's a lot of folks, that are saying, hey, they tell us all the time, they're like, hey, Cooter, I'm just not doing it, buddy. I'm going to do my own thing. I don't blame you. But for folks that have been around things like that younger in their life, they already have a skill set there, guys, in the brain to help them get through with this, to understand about it. Because, living in a very remote lifestyle like that, one thing that people have to remember are like emergencies, health emergencies. What are you going to do, guys, if somebody gets snake bit and you're 45 minutes from town? What are you going to do if somebody gets cut, building something with a saw? What are you going to do? And it's a very mind over matter, tough kind of lifestyle many times, guys. And there's a lot of folks that see that like a challenge. And then unfortunately, guys, there's a lot of folks many times that just experience a good 6 months or a year of it, and then they don't like it. And that is one thing right there that you will find many times in a very rural type of lifestyle like that, is you'll have 2 or 3 groups of people living in close proximity there to each other, helping each other out. And myself and Scooter, that's one thing that we both kind of believe in, is a little bit of helping your neighbor. Especially if you're into homesteading, guys, if you're into a minimalist type of lifestyle. It's one of those, you have a garden with plenty of tomatoes, the neighbor has corn, you trade, and then presto, everybody has canned vegetable soup. That's kind of how these things work, guys, and that's how they did in fact work years ago. A little nifty story that I've shared in times past, but I would love to add to this video. Little personal story, guys. Years ago when I was a young man, I rebuilt a 55 Chevrolet pickup truck, first series for you car guys. And my grandmother, which grew up in the Depression, had enough country crock butter bowls saved up because we might use those. That's how they thought, in the Depression era of life, that I had enough butter bowls there that were cleaned out and things, that I had enough of them to take about every bolt out of that old pickup truck, label it and say fender bolts, and put them in there. And I knew right where they were all at, and I stacked them up out in the garage. And I didn't even put a dent into my grandmother's butter bowls. So that's what I'm trying to tell you guys. For a lot of folks that do in fact live off the grid, a lot of folks that visit, like say for instance the Amish communities, because that myself and Scooter, we have a page dedicated to the Amish here in Etheridge, Tennessee. One thing that you'll see, that they're very resourceful people. If somebody tears down a barn and the tin's still good, they'll reuse that tin. They'll almost put nails right back in the same holes. That could be almost the pattern for their barn, the wood framing. They'll get her to where she lines up to where they can use those holes again. nail it right back on, because the other barn, the bottom of it was rotting out. So, you know, you have to get in that mindset, guys, when you're in a minimalist type of lifestyle, a very homesteader type of lifestyle, you know, a survivor type of lifestyle, which is quite funny because I've met a lot of folks. I wouldn't really call them the working poor, but I would say they're more, you know, had chosen to live that way. And, you know, I asked a fellow one time, he was pretty well outdoors. I said, hey man, how do you like it? And he told me he loved every minute of it, that he had in fact been a doctor at one time and had some things happen in his life. And he said that he was going to travel around on foot now. That was the key to it. He was going to kind of look over the United States, and when he found where he liked the best, that's where he was going to settle. He had enough money to do it, and he was kind of going to live like a homesteading type of lifestyle. But I wanted to stop for a minute, guys, make you guys a fireside chat. That's kind of been brewing around in my mind. Got a lot of folks, like I said, trying to get back to the basics, find out what they can rid themselves of and things. And, you know, like I said, myself and Scooter, we hate to see somebody go out to do something and not achieve it. So we definitely, you know, want to stop, make you guys a fireside chat about that. Just a few things, you know, to remember. You know, the unexpected, always kind of plan a little bit for what you may not know about. You know, if you're going to go to a certain area, try to get off the grid, guys, definitely check out everything about that area. The wildlife, the growing seasons, the weather patterns, everything. The people in that area, you know, might even suggest going, talking to some of the local folks, asking them, hey, what's it like around here? Do you have a lot of problems with people trespassing? Do you have a lot of tourist activity at certain times of the years like they do there in the Great Smoky Mountains, places like that? You know, find out before you commit. That way you definitely get the homestead that you want one day. But anyways, guys, I say it all the time. Stay safe on the water. Stay safe in the woods. And definitely stay tuned here at the Crockett Coonhound Show. And myself and Scooter will have you guys another video dropping shortly. You guys have a great day.